Welcome back to the Sacred Arts channel, where we discuss all things from the practical to the sacred. Many of you know that I've been grieving for the last year, and in an attempt to find answers, to understand what happens after death, I've gone down a deep rabbit hole, listening to countless near-death experiences from the International Association for Near-Death Studies, also known as IANS, to hundreds of episodes on YouTube. Today, we have a very special guest, Bill Letson, one of the most intriguing near-death experiences I've come across. Plus, I love that he is a local in proximity to where I grew up and currently live. Bill Letson lives in California with his wife of 40 years, Leah, and their cats, dogs, and chickens. He is a retired fire captain and worked in forestry for over 35 years. In 1994, while in Santa Barbara, Bill himself fell severely ill while he was on active duty, ending up in the ICU extremely dehydrated with critical health signs. That night, he experienced what many may call a near-death experience. He felt he left his body, journeyed through a starry space. In today's episode, we will dive deep into his personal story. For 15 years, he reflected on this profound experience, especially the peaceful feelings he had about dying and the intriguing beings he encountered. By 2010, realizing that many share similar experiences, Bill delved deep to understand our life's purpose. His exploration connected near-death experiences with shamanic rituals, spiritual energy known as Kundalini, ancient sky patterns, and old wisdom. Welcome, Bill.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. I want to start off with maybe sharing with our audience about your near-death experience story.
Okay, I'll get right into it. It was 1994. I was working for Santa Barbara County Fire Department and Station 11 down in Santa Barbara. And it was a normal flu season, but it was kind of a rough one. And we went to a patient and she was super ill. And I was trying to get a mask on her, and she exhaled into my face, and I inhaled her breath. And I knew that whatever it was she had, because she was really ill, I was going to get it. And we got her to the hospital, and she turned out okay, and it was a happy ending. And we went on days off, and I was, by the second day, I was super ill. I was throwing up and just getting dehydrated both ways, and it came on really fast. Usually those things, they take a week or so, but it was within a couple days. I was in trouble, and I couldn't get a pulse at my wrist, and my heart rate was just soaring. And so I knew that, when those two numbers start going in opposite directions, blood pressure and pulse, that you're in for a bad time. And so I made the call for help. My family called 911, and my department came. The guys got me in an ambulance and got some IVs going, got me to the hospital, and went into the emergency room. And I was sitting in a room by myself. My wife showed up, some fire guys showed up, and they'd given me a couple of leaders by then, and it started coming around. I was feeling a lot better, and they had, the emergency room was just full of people with the same flu, and they were giving everybody the same thing because the staff was overloaded. And so they came in and they gave me this morphine based painkiller thing and this something for nausea. And they I came in there on my knees, blood pressure wise, fluid volume wise, and then that Nubane, it was a synthetic morphine, it just vasodilated my system, and it just, when they pushed it in all at once, and I just keeled over. I just crashed. And my wife said, your eyes rolled back, and they couldn't get you back. They couldn't get a blood pressure, and they shipped you up to intensive care. They Narcaned you a bunch of times. They gave you, Narcan is something that gobbles up the opiates. It's what, paramedics carry for heroin overdose. And now parents can carry these things because opiates are so widespread, the problem with kids and stuff. And so, yeah, they Narcan me. She wrote it down 3 times, and they stuck me in intensive care, and I was there for overnight. And this all happened about 3:30 in the afternoon. And sometime during that night, I left my body. I was absolutely no longer Bill, and I was super overjoyed about that. And I love being Bill, and I did all my life. Even though I was in my 30s when this happened, but it felt like I'd been let out of a hot, dark, stuffy closet, which I'd been doing time in, and I was released, and I was this huge, expanded cloud of euphoria, this huge balloon that went on forever. And it felt like somebody was pouring honey all over my brain, and it was running down through every nerve. And it was absolute euphoria, like some sort of cosmic orgasm that just kept going. It was like a standing wave of ecstasy. And that is what we come from. That is a realm of pure love, the afterlife. And eventually, I guess that's where we return to. And as I was flying along, it was really puzzling. And the first thing I said was, man, what was that? That was rough. That life that I was in, and that bundle of emotions. And I'm not an emotional person. I've had a very happy life my whole life, and very stable, and not a lot of drama and trauma. But it was an overwhelming feeling of, my goodness, that was a huge load to carry. Those, and what I mean by that is, the universe, what it's really about is emotions, our emotional choices, our vibration. That's what's important. Nothing else matters. Everything that we do here, it seems ridiculous. But yeah, it's the emotional quality of our being is what we're interested in reality. And as I was flying along thinking, man, what was that? That was gnarly. And then I was thinking, how in the world did I forget who I really was? How did I forget this place and my place in it? How is it that I believed I was this dude, this single, this separate, this ego, this person? Because I absolutely wasn't. It was, and I hope this is helpful for people. It was a game or a trick or a joke that we play. There wasn't any heaviness to it. There wasn't any, there's no judgment. There's nobody's keeping score on you. It's just an experience for us to grow in our capacity to love. That's soul growth. How many tough situations can we navigate and, come to the conclusion that I'm not going to react to this. I'm going to behave in a kind and compassionate and loving way because this is all a joke. And that's what we're learning. That's when we get to transcend this place, when we do learn that and live it. So I'm flying along and I'm just grooving on everything, and there's all these colored stars, is all I could call them, balls, and they were showering me with this vibration of acceptance and love and joy. And it was a homecoming. I was parading through friends and ancestors, and they were just super overjoyed to see me. And I was like, oh man, this is awesome. And I cruised for a while in that environment, and then I landed. I landed in a different place. It firmed up. It wasn't this heavenly uh, realm of where everything is. There's no limits. This limitless pleasure, this limitless possibilities. Um, Now I was in a place. I was a being of some sort, and this place had indirect lighting. There were tables there and gurneys, and there was equipment hanging from the ceiling, and it was like a facility or like a medical clinic. Um, and I was like, what just happened? It was like I changed dimensions. I went from the earth dimension to this heavenly realm to this somewhat in between place. And um, and there were beings there. And we have lots of names for these, I think, angels and guides and helpers. Um, but they were these three short little funny guys, and they had these dark hoods, and they were bouncing up and down, and they were giggling, um, like you came home and you have a bunch of dogs in the house, and the dogs all want to jump on you, and they're running, and this is what it was like. That was the feeling I got there. I was confused, but I wasn't at all fearful or alarmed or anything. It felt very natural, and they were bouncing around and smiling, and they had these playful little personalities, bumping into each other and stuff. And they kept asking me things like, "How was it? What can you tell us? What did you learn?" And I was really confused, and I think I just kept looking at him, with my mouth open, like, where am I and how did I get here? And one of them came forward and took a long look at me, looked up and down, and then he turned to the other two and he said, "He doesn't remember us." And they all started giggling. Um, anyway, and they were wonderful. And it was like I had gone with them to the fair, and there was a new roller coaster, and I went and rode the roller coaster, and they stayed on the landing. And I got off the roller coaster, and they were there going, "Dude, how was it?" And that's exactly what it felt like, that I was back with some very good friends. And then there was this other guy, and he was in the background at first, and he was this tall, wispy guy, and he was this I mean, I've called him like a trimmed down Gumby or a walking stick insect. He was this tall, uh, wispy, spinning sliver of a being. He had this amazing smile and bright eyes, and it was like your best friend you haven't seen in 10 years, suddenly shows up at your doorstep, and the look on their face. And he was super stoked to see me. And when he came forward, he, it, the interesting thing, when he came forward, it was like he was this like spinning energy, like this tornado or something, spinning lines of energy. And um, the top kind of moved first, and his body kind of separated, and then everything kind of moved together and caught back up. And if you take like a glass of water or a jar of water and spin it really fast, and then look at that little tornado from the side, it's doing this, it's wispy. That's exactly what he looks like. Um, what he looked like. And when he came forward, he was coming forward to um, make it known that he was there. And when he came forward, my chest just expanded like an overpumped tire, and my throat tightened. And it's like I was watching a tearjerker of a movie or something. And he came forward, and I felt like I was going to fall down on my knees and cry uncontrollably from love. There was so much love from this spinning energetic guy that it was paralyzing. It was overwhelming. And he came forward, and there was some back and forth things. Every time I said something, and I know I didn't have a body or a mouth or eyes, but your senses, um, they're intact. You're exactly the same as you are here. It's like it's like a seamless crossing over. Your consciousness, that voice inside your head that navigates your day and things like that, that is exactly the same. And if you listen for that, a lot of NDEers, they'll be into their NDE, following these beings around and stuff, and they'll never question, where am I and who am I? Because it's that easy. Going home is that easy. And so I say things like, I said this or he said that, and that's not necessary. There wasn't vocal cords or mouths moving or burping out sounds. There was communication, authentic, genuine, honest communication. I think that's an important part of our journey here, is to get to that authentic person that we all are, and to drop all of the rest of it, because the other side's looking for that genuine, soul to come forward in this life. So back to him, as he was as he came forward, we talked a couple of times, and every time I said something, he chuckled. He chuckled at everything. And the three little guys were bouncing around, giggling. And he was very amused by me. And at one point I said, well, I'm not going back there. I'm not going back to this dude. I'm not going back to that single, that separate, that cut off, confused, person. And so you guys, I understand there's some sort of review of my life that we do, and then I get to move on. I was ready to leave that facility, and I realized that it was limitless possibilities out there, and I was ready to go. And I said, so do you guys want to do this review of my life thing? You want to get started with that? And that he just cracked up. He just really had a good belly laugh at that. And I got the sense that it was like I was a toddler and I was trying to take over. A little 3-year-old said, we're going to do this now. And he just said, it was the coolest thing. He just chuckled for a while, and then he says, sure, let's do that. How do you want to start? And he chuckled some more. And I kind of thought, well, this is kind of weird, but okay. And so I started talking, and I was telling stories about things in my life that nothing, no heavy regrets, no guilt or shame or anything like that. And also there weren't any profound realizations of things I'd done in my life that I had affected others. And so it wasn't any kind of a review at all. It was just me sort of bumbling around in this place. And so I told a few stories about wanting to take these jobs. I wished I took this job on this island because my wife wanted it, and that when we were younger, and a couple of other things. And it was like he said, okay, that's enough. And he stepped forward. He said, time to go back. And that just floored me. I was like, dude, what? Go back? And he goes, yeah, you got to go back. And I fought, like everybody says. I protested. There's no fighting. You're completely belong to that other environment, and you do as you're told, because it's for your best interest. And I said, I'm not going back there. There's no way. I told him I was almost 40, and that's pretty much an old dude, and I don't have much more to do. I can contribute. And he laughed at that. And I also told him that my wife and my parents would pretty much be the only ones who were super impacted by this. Lots of friends and all that, but they would be hurt. But they're strong people. They will get over it. And he thought that was funny too. And he said, okay, now you're going back. And he came forward, and it was really obvious. My vibration started to change, and the room started to break up, and he kind of dematerialized in front of me, and I dropped away into darkness. And I got down into a place. It was a definite drop in frequency. It was another dimensional change, and and I got down close to my body, and it wasn't someplace you wanted to be. It was lonely, and it was dismal, and you didn't want to stay there. And I don't, I'm learning a lot about near death experiences myself, and I don't know if that was a reintegration with the personality and all that emotional, that heavy emotional package that is our earth, you know, burden, and whether that came flooding back in and it was just crushing, or if I was in a realm right next to where we are now, which is a very low vibrational realm. We talk about these things, we got names for them. And when we don't raise our vibration, or we leave this life confused, or, somewhat astonished or something, then we're stuck. We're stuck close to the physical. We call these ghosts, spirits, and things like that. And it's just consciousness that's lost its way. It's haven't ascended yet. We all get there. So I was back in my body, and I had this slow waking up process. But eventually I was awake, looking around, and a nurse walked by, and she was startled. She's like, "You're awake." And I'm like, "Yes, I am. I need to talk to you." And because I had a complaint to file. And she said, "Well, I have to go get the doctor. We have not understood what's been happening with you. Why you were this far gone, and what if you were even going to come back." And I said, "Okay, you can go get the doctor, but first, what am I doing back here?" I was pissed, and uh, I I told her I was home. I had made it out of here and everything that this place has to offer, and I was back with my best friends. And how did I get back here? I had, I was, I was dead. I knew I was dead. And I said, I had bought the farm. How is it I'm back here? And she said, "Well, honey, you were in escrow, and you fell out of escrow, and now you're back with us." And she was really sweet. She had her hands on my shoulders, and she goes, "You're going to have to get your head around that." And, I was talking to a medium friend, and she said, that nurse grounded you immediately. And that was really cool, because her words just echoed in my head for years. I got to get my head around this. And because it's, when you're cut off from that, it's a devastating feeling when you're cut off from home. And I think that's why babies come into this world screaming, because it's like, oh my goodness, I'm back here. And yeah, it's a really big deal. And my heroes, I've got a lot of them. My NDA heroes that helped me, like Mary Neal and Tony Woody, and their stories. And if you listen carefully, they'll tell you that they had months and years of problems with depression and questioning what they did wrong to be sent back here. Um, so I was I really didn't know what had happened, but I realized that I was there was a conscious effort by my maker, uh, my higher self, Jesus. We got humanity's trying to explain this very unique thing that we go through, and we've got all kinds of stories. And I get emails all the time, that you met Lord Krishna, or you were with Jesus, or you were with Shiva, and I write back and I say, yeah, I think you're right. I say it to every one of them because, yeah, we're doing our best to explain this amazing relationship that we have with ourselves and our soul and our higher self, and and the universe. So I got back to work. It was like a week later. I got back to work, and everyone wanted to know because they had heard this thing had happened. I got hit with some meds that knocked me for a loop, and that it was a close call. And all of them would say, "Hey, so there's this other thing. So what happened?" And I go, "Well, it's pretty unusual." And I tell them I wouldn't leave anything out, and they'd be put off by it, especially the religious guys, because they wanted to see robes and beards and uh, harps and angels. They wanted that story to be confirmed. And I kind of can confirm it, but it's not in the programmed way. But it's it's for real. I mean, it's the afterlife is for real, and this is kind of a play that we're in, and we can call it all kinds of things, but it's real, and it's the emotional quality is off the chart. It's so cool. So yeah, I talked for a while, and then some guys from the office said, "Hey, you sounded like a kook," and so I go, "Yeah, I can see that," you know. And so I zipped it, and I dummied up for 15 years. And in 2010, I retired, and I put it away publicly, but I was always sort of looking, not a lunatic looking, but just if I was in a bookstore, I'd go into the woo-woo section and I'd see what books were popular. And the Eckhart Tolle books were very helpful. He gets it. And the woman who wrote my Stroke of Insight, Jill Bolte Taylor, she was a brain PhD, and she had a stroke, and she was caught between those two worlds. She was caught um, when she left her body. She said that she felt like a genie that had been let out of her bottle, and she was this giant whale gliding through a sea of silent euphoria. And I actually read that at my dad's funeral because I told this story, and then I read that, and I go, this is real, to all his old timer buddies. I go, look, it's real. There's no reason to cry today. He's in a great place. And her words, a genie out of her bottle and a whale in this sea of silent euphoria. And I was let out of a hot closet, and a hot stuffy closet, and I was this huge expanded cloud, uh, just flying along through all these stars. And so we use different words, but the other side, the afterlife, what we move on to, it's absolutely real. Don't ever question it. And so yeah, I in 2010 I retired, and then this questioning part that should have happened, I guess, after the near-death experience, it came roaring back, and I started traveling to Costa Rica and hanging out with shamans. At first, I didn't know what I was doing. I was just going down there and driving around, and pretty soon the paved roads turned into crummy roads, turned into dirt, turned into trails. And I was in villages and staying weeks and months at a time, and being around people that were very close to nature and very close to silence and stillness. And, this really high intention, these high quality emotions that's part of the villages. And Native Americans, Um, and all these things happened. But yeah, there's some interesting connections there, and I found a lot of answers. And so that's my near-death experience story.
That's incredible. Just listening to your story again, it just made me well up with emotion because I feel like anytime I hear a near death experience, there's a tiny bit of me that wants to remember that experience. And also, it gives me hope. It gives me something to know that my loved ones are filled with this love and this euphoric experience. I mean, I've heard other types of NDEs as well that maybe doesn't have those as well, but it does give me that hope. One question that I'm very curious about is, you mentioned coming back down into your body and having this experience of total darkness and very low vibrations. And yeah, it could very well be that you were in the in between, but also earth is known as a very low vibrational space. Why do you think it is, in like your personal experience, why do you think it is that we as souls, as consciousness, choose to come here to earth?
Oh yeah, it's a very challenging thing, and it's a very courageous thing. Everyone on the Earth plane currently is a megastar, superstar in the soul world, and we come for the challenges, um, and it's all about soul growth, and that is growing in our capacity to love. We go through these challenges. We've mapped them out. We've set them up, and we're seeing how we respond to them. There'll be 3 or 4 tsunamis in our lives. All of us will have these. Some will have more, some will have less, and these tsunamis of emotion. And we get to choose: are we going to go up the scale, up towards, you know, compassion and love and kindness, or are we going to react in fear with, guilt and shame and anger and all those low vibrations? And the movie Groundhog Day. This is a perfect example of why we come here. He's Bill Murray. He starts out, he's pretty much of a not very nice guy, and he gets stuck in this cycle, and the cycle of being the same day over and over. And we get the cycle of the same, these lives over and over. So every day that he lives is representative of a life that we live. And in each life, he gets to choose. And, he goes the full gamut. He rips people off and he's selfish and all this stuff. And then he gets bored with it and he goes through the whole suicide thing because he's figuring out he's some sort of in reality, he's some sort of a god. He's some sort of eternal being. And he's stuck in this loop. And then he gives up and he just starts being a sweetheart. His real self comes back and he's taking care of a homeless guy and helping out these little old ladies. And he doesn't really want anything for it. It's, the value is in the act of kindness that's so important for us to learn. And, eventually he gets to leave the town. And the guys who made that movie, they even admit it. It's like, yeah, that's what we were doing. And, they admitted that they had gone, if you math, college math professors and stuff have done the math on how long it would take to learn those languages or to learn how to play the piano. And they came up with 7,000 lives. And the producer said they were shooting for 15,000 lives. Yeah. And you talk to these people who do these past life regressions, and they're into 20 and 30,000 lives with some of their patients. So we're having a good time down here. It's a wonderful school, you know. It's a school of hard knocks because these emotions don't exist where we come from. They stay here.
Yeah.
Uh, these dark emotions, and I can absolutely verify that because I was out there, and um, yeah, these those the harsh emotions that we see every day on our screens, um, they stay here. They're for us to learn from. And we go through the experiences as these characters that we take on. And it's because experience is the best teacher. So that's the rationale from the divine side. Um, because there is something to lose. We've got this, we got this left brain, right brain. The left brain is connected to here, and it's facts, figures, who we are, our opinions on this, that, and the other thing. And then the right brain is connected to home. And that's just music and flow and art and kindness. And so that's where we come from. And, this character that we are, this temporary being that we are, there's loss. When you have when you're, lose out on a relationship, or you get fired from a job, or you get an illness, we're all going to the same place. We're going to slowly be reduced down to a single house, and then maybe a bed, and then we're going to seemingly die, but we don't. Nobody ever dies. We
Mm-hmm.
just we just slip out of our current character, but we don't know that. We've forgotten who we really are, and so we go through these. It's a really cool thing that we put
Yeah,
ourselves through.
absolutely. I want to talk a little bit about your experiences down in South America and get a little bit into that. There's a theory that the pineal gland produces what is called DMT, which some suggest might be linked to spiritual experiences like yours. What's your perspective on this, and how do you see DMT's role in our consciousness?
Um, yeah, I drank ayahuasca a handful of times with shamans down there, and I don't recommend it. Uh, but I was I was being led to do a lot of these things and then talk about them later, which is what's going on right now. So the overall picture is that we have a pineal gland. It's called the seat of the soul, the third eye. It's between our two eyes and then it's deep recessed in our brain. And it's this little tiny gland. It's about as big as your little tip of your little finger, and it's hollow. And inside it has these rods and cones like the eyeball. And it's called the seat of the soul. And inside that hollow gland is this special water that we make. It's infused with light and divine electricity, prana. And when things are right, when it's operating um, efficiently and like it was designed to, we can, in a state of sort of relaxation, a meditative state where we sit quietly, that will that third eye will activate, and you can peer into that water, and you're picking up actual um, energetic signals with those rods and cones that are in their eye. And then the whole thing is hardwired. It's connected into the visual cortex of the brain. So we the pineal gland gets this energetic. It gets what I get is vibrations. You sit still and the vibrations can come up really quick now. It used to take 30, 40 minutes, but the vibrations start, and then you start seeing the colors. You move through the colors, and then you go to the grids, and you can move through the grids, and then you're around all of these light colored beings of pure joy. I know this sounds ridiculous, but I can do it anytime. You just sit still, and these light. It's like beams of light that are moving in these colors, these purples and greens and white gold, and they'll come close to you and you'll see an outline of a person and then a face come forward to look 3D. And um, I'm I'm talking to people that know stuff about this because it's a progressive thing. It's associated with Kundalini, and um, I'm gonna have to hold it together here because it's getting really strong um, all the time. And I think I'll be okay. But I'm talking to mediums and stuff because this is what they see.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they were born with it, and I wasn't born with this. It came on in the last 10 years. So yeah, the pineal gland is for real, and with that visual cortex connection from the pineal gland and those rods and cones looking into that magical water, that's the best way to put it. What happens to people like me um, and people who take hallucinogenics, it's like a movie screen opens up in your visual field. It's not something that's occurring in front of you like it seems. It's occurring, it's the information coming from the pineal gland being displayed, uh, relayed to the brain, and then the brain displays it as it would, your eyeball um, type data. So yeah, you can look at a screen and you see different times, you see different places. Sometimes you're above like a village or something, and all of a sudden you'll shoot down and you're inside of a building looking down at people working. Um, it's for real. Everybody has this ability. I'm just going through it, and uh, and I'm talking about it, and I'm using as blue collar language. Most people get lost in some sort of spiritual thing or metaphysical thing, and they get all woo woo, and it makes you feel really special, but you're really not. We're all the same. We
Yeah.
can all do it. And that's where yeah, I think you said something about psychedelics. That's the chemical core of all of these things that make you give you the ability to see things. They all, from what I can tell, they all have the same vibration. When you eat those things, just like when you have a cup of coffee, it affects you for a number of hours and then it's gone, or a glass of wine. And that's what these hallucinogenics do. They go in and they have a specific vibration that ties in with that pineal gland and breaks all the barriers down. And we call it a hallucination, but it's really a reality nation. You're looking at the real universe, and it's overwhelming for a lot of people because it can be so strange.
Mhm.
But
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you that we all have this innate ability to be able to get to that state of mind, often called the shamanic state, right? I've never done ayahuasca and I've never had a near-death experience, but from what I've heard time and time again, I have experienced some of those things just by being in meditation and being able to get into the shamanic state, either through breath work, because breath work, what it does is you're intaking so much oxygen, it's opening up so much, and then it's producing a lot of DMT within your own brain naturally. And then also by going up into the shamanic state, effectively what you're doing is you're going into a theta state. So you're bringing your brain waves, you're slowing your brain waves down so much. Right before you fall asleep, everybody gets into this state. And this is kind of like where the magic happens, where you kind of start to see what you had said, like the colors and like the shapes of people. And then the more and more, or of beings, the more and more I practice it, the longer I can hold that state. And then the more and more my gifts are opening up. And it happens progressively. It's not like in the movies, like boom, like all of a sudden you have all these powers. No, it just like happens the more and more you practice. And you're absolutely right. Everybody has this ability, but I think we're all shut down because we're so worried about the 9 to 5, the kids, the whatever it is that we have to do on our to-do list, that we kind of stop going inward, which is really interesting to kind of see as an observer.
That's really cool, man. That's a really good message. Um, because yeah, I am an NDE guy and I did the shamanic thing. And what I tell people is you can get there, you can get to those places, those states, and you're right, it's in that divine space between sleeping and dreaming and waking that
Mm-hmm.
is a divine connection to the other side. And yeah, you don't, yeah, and what his name is, yeah, you got me all excited. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
His name is, he's the premier guy right now. Hancock. Oh heck, Graham Hancock.
Okay.
Yeah, Graham Hancock. He made a statement, and I've heard a few other uh, famous researchers say the same thing. And he said, if you really want to know what's going on with the universe, outside of all the dogma and doctrine and rituals and all that, he said, talk to the NDEers, the shamanic healing medicine people, and
Mm-hmm.
the people who go into this deep meditation, like a trance state, where your body feels like a pile of rocks and you're just pulling out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And those three things, those are, of the three, um, that meditation thing, anybody can do it right now. Just go find a quiet place in nature and sit quietly and get that 20-degree, you get your head at that certain angle and it starts the alpha, which, um, that's on the way to the theta. And it starts immediately. And
Mm-hmm.
if you can clear out the clutter and reconnect with, Mother Earth, and a lot of it has to do with diet and structured water, and get back to the human being that walked barefoot on this earth and ate fresh food and drank water from a creek. When you get back to that, everything's there. We're just cut off from it in these times. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a great message.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned diet and, connecting with Mother Earth, being barefoot, and that practice itself does help us to connect. Do you believe that there is an intrinsic connection between humans and nature, and that by immersing ourselves in nature, we can access deeper states of consciousness?
Yeah, we're part of nature. Just like, if you look at a plant, their roots are embedded in magnetic Mother Earth, and they turn their leaves, full of chlorophyll, they turn them towards source, great spirit, the sun. And we don't do those things. Their chlorophyll the cell looks exactly like our hemoglobin, and they do the exact same things with moving energy. And what we do is we have rubber soled shoes, and we're inside buildings, and we hide from the sun. We cover up, and we put lotions on us and things like that. And my everything started opening up a few years ago when I started doing sun gazing. And I don't recommend this because there's a cultural thing. You look at the sun, you're crazy. You'll be instantly blinded. But when the sun first comes up, if you if you sit on Mother Earth and look at the sun, and there's this uh, there's this meditation that Robert Edward Grant has. It's not at his site, and it's called the Diamond Meditation. And you get these frequencies in this chant. Crazy things happen, just wild things happen. It sets up immediately these vibrations, and a lot. Anybody can see how you know how amazing we really are, all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. I tried sun glazing or gazing for a while, and it just wasn't for me. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, that's why put that disclaimer in there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but that's what life is about, right? Experimenting and seeing what resonates with your inner being and trying these things because there's so many ways to get to the same results. It's just about what resonates with you.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, yeah, to sum that up, we've, um, the NDE, that's kind of a drastic event. And then the ayahuasca, the DMT, that's sort of a forced NDE. It's a forced astral travel. And, 98% of the people who go to those ceremonies, they never go back and they hardly talk about it because it's brutal. And you're all of a sudden we are this human being, this single, this separate, and then there's above us is the soul, and then the higher self, and then this expanded universe. And when you use DMT, that whole thing that we are single and separate and everything we've ever known, that is opened up, and you move into those other dimensions, and it can be a shocker. So the best thing to do, I think, is use the meditative approach, and you'll slowly, like going to the gym, you'll slowly get better and better at it, and um, all your questions will be answered through those deep meditations, those trance-like meditations.
When you did ayahuasca, did you experience a similar experience from your near-death experience?
Near the end, I did. At the beginning, um, it was pretty shocking because I just kind of went for it. I thought I knew, I was a fireman, and I thought I knew it all, I've seen it all, done it all, and I could handle it all. And um, when I drank the ayahuasca, it was with these Colombian shamans in Costa Rica out in the jungle with like a dozen other people. And it was raining, and we were underneath this roof thing. And I didn't think much was going to happen. I thought, well, this is kind of cool. It'll be fun to talk about. And they gave me this, they call it yahe. And it's this really thick, um, big old milkshake. And I'm like, wow, that doesn't look like the stuff I drank or they were drinking in the videos, because it was a tea. Um, and so, yeah, I chewed this thing down, and it was extremely powerful. The Within a half an hour, this huge, like DNA coil just opened up on the ceiling, and it went on forever. And there were these colors that were coming down, like colors I'd never seen before. And you were like, you couldn't look away. It was just so beautiful, and it was going through you. And then I fell asleep or something, and you after about an hour after you drink, you'll purge. And I woke up and I had to purge, and I was over my bucket. You've heard about this, right? You throw up. And that what that's all about is that it's grabbing all the low vibrational energies that the traumas and stuff that we carry around, and we carry them around. We definitely do. And it brings them all into the stomach, and then when you hurl it, it shoots these energies out with it. And I could feel like, my liver was like I was getting punched in the stomach, leading up to this. And it was like, what is going on? And they said, the medicine is grabbing all these energies and it's bringing to your stomach so you can get rid of it. And I was like, okay. And anyway, when it came, it was like a jet engine. There was very little fluid, but it was this roaring, sound, just wow. And this is where I'm going to lose pretty much everybody. But this bluish black mass came out. It wasn't of this world, and it sort of undulated across the floor, and it was this big thing. And I turned to my friends, and I'm like, what is happening? Because this thing came out of me, this energy. It looked like gel or smoke or liquid, and the shaman saw it. and he told one of his guys, go over there and sweep that area and sweep that out into the jungle. And um, a year later, I asked them, what was that all about? And a guy told me, he says that was an energy entity. That was energy from past lives, um, things that were traumatic to you that, um, you know, you got rid of. And that made sense because all that went out. And then I started bouncing between Bill and this like next level, and then this like overseer, and you all of those conscious positions become open to you, and we have no idea what is going on. You just know that, here I was looking at human Bill saying, man, that guy is a pain in the ass, because I was rolling on the ground and I was just moaning, and I had all this fear. It's called the pit. And I had all this fear just coming in waves, one after another, and it went on for hours. And I sat at the soul level, and all I felt was compassion. Oh, this poor guy, and um, no judgment or nothing. And then this higher level was like, you know, it was extremely strange that you move through. There's so much we are. There's so much more to us than the human being that we believe we are.
That is incredible.
And yeah, and if you read Terence McKenna's book, it's called True Hallucinations, and there's a chapter in there where he talks about the Ecuadorian shamans who talk about that this comes out of people, this energy, and they would collect it and spread it out on the floor, and they could look at past times, past events, and watch it like a movie, and that makes sense. So yeah, you have to purge those energies before you can move into those higher realms, because those energies stay here, like I said before. And that's the whole thing behind ayahuasca is, these guys have figured it out. These shamans have figured this amazing thing that they can do with us. But don't ever do it, because it's really harsh. It's really, most people don't know what happened. Most people don't understand what happened to them.
Yeah. I think that it's a great tool for anybody that's ready for it, that has been really into the meditation. And, I think you really just need to check in internally and just see if it's something that it's really calling you, right? It's not like one of those things like, oh, my friend is doing it. Let me go ahead and kind of jump on
Right.
the
No, if you're going to be in that space, you're not going to go with a bunch of friends and it's not a party.
No.
You put yourself out there, you go alone, and you pay attention. So if you go with the DMT, this is what's popular, from what I read on the comments from these videos and stuff, that the people are, they smoke DMT, and they call it the breakthrough uh, dose or whatever. And any human being that does DMT will break through, and they'll see things like little elves and little hooded figures, um, and there's a lot of comments saying your near-death experience was exactly like my DMT experience. And what I say is, well, yeah, we did the same thing. It's a natural thing with the body that the DMT splashes the brain at the time of death, and the soul is, rockets out of the body. Consciousness rockets out of the body. And they're doing the same thing by smoking and, filling themselves up with this dose of DMT. And once somebody can get their head around the fact that when you smoke DMT and you see all these funny little bouncing guys that are giggling and stuff, that you are crossing over into some dimension of the afterlife. When that happens, that's just that's a remarkable realization. And I say a lot of time that a lot of our movies, if you're ready to see it, they're helping us with our real situation here. And the Wizard of Oz, Dorothy, she gets taken up in this vortex, and she's in the house, and the window comes off, and it hits her in the head, and she peels away from her body. It's a near-death experience. And then she goes over to the door, and everything's in black and white and kind of drab. And then she opens the door, and then she's in this incredibly colorful place where the plants are alive, and giant flowers. And a lot of people talk about these things. And then she meets these giggling little munchkins in groups of three. She meets the three little lollipop guys, and then she meets the three dancers. They all come and approach her in groups of three. And then comes this greater being, Glinda. She arrives in a colorful orb, and she takes good care of Dorothy and puts her on this journey, and is there through the whole journey. Whenever she needs help, Glinda appears, the higher self, and she finds her way home. There's no place like home. So, I mean, that's a shocker for people, but yeah, all these movies, Groundhog Day, The Matrix, they're
Oh
all
yeah. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And then I'm constantly finding it, even in television shows. Like there's a really popular one on Apple TV now called Ted Lasso. It's interweaven or woven into the script because you hear him talk about like many lives, many masters. I mean, he says it like jokingly, but I'm like, that's a book. And I'll hear little spiritual things in the actual dialogue that they chose on that episode or on the in the episodes. I wanted to ask you earlier, actually, have you seen the movie Astral City?
That's really cool. You brought that up. Yeah, somebody left a comment on the Shaman Oaks thing saying what this guy went through is exactly what was channeled from this guy in Brazil, a very famous channel who hundreds of books. And
Chico Xavier, yeah.
yeah, Chico Xavier, and I'll let you tell it, but my story is, you know, it hit each of those. That was a medical clinic uh, that he was in, and it was a medium talked to me, and she said she goes there often, and she said that it is a place where we heal emotional scars.
Yeah.
Those are emotional scars that those people are troubled with when they go in there.
It's really funny because when I first saw your story, there's a group of people that we're all really good friends. We call each other kind of like the shamanic siblings because we all went through a shamanic school together. And I sent them your video and I said, this sounds so much like Astral City, what we saw in Astral City, because we all saw that as a group. And I gotta say that when I first saw that movie, I was a little disappointed and I was a little sad. I was like, I don't want to go to a hospital after I die and just eat soup or whatever it is that they were feeding him. I was really sad. And I was like, and I don't want to sit in a court and listen to music. Like, I want to be out and about and I was just praying and hoping that, whatever it is that we think heaven is or whatever it is that we think the other side is, that's what we'll get presented with, but we'll see. Because your story was so reminiscent to that movie.
Yeah,
I was like, oh my God.
yeah, it's yeah. I think we're on to the actual story here. And there's this guy John Davis. He has an NDE, and he talks about going to this city where all these where you're planning your next life, and there's libraries, and he just says it's incredible city. And and he got a tour of it. John Davis, he's very popular.
Okay.
He's an unremarkable guy. He's completely authentic. He all he does is tells his story because this Jesus figure told him, go back and tell them there's nothing to fear with
Mm.
dying.
I
And
think I just saw him the other day.
yeah, he's awesome when they plug the graphics in, and he's in this city. So here's what I think it when we first, when we get past the rough place, and that's on us. We have to sort out how to walk through that valley of shadow of death. And then we get to the astral city, and maybe we have to have some repair time. And it's kind of a place where we hang out and everything's cool and we keep having lives on Earth. And then someday we get enough soul growth that, we move from the astral city. And you notice there was this beam of like purple energy coming
Mhm.
from that dome. And the guy's mother, Chico's mother, pops in, but
Yeah.
but she's from somewhere else. And I think we move on from that city once we've completed all the lives we need to grow. And yeah, I think this is how it all works.
Yeah, I
It's
think so
pretty amazing.
too. It hits almost like truth in within me. Um, but yeah, I was a little bit disappointed. So we'll see what happens in the afterlife.
Well, that was like a few months ago. I kind of went same through the same thing you did, and it's like, oh, this, where John went, that figures. And I was in this facility. I didn't get to go cruise around the city. And this medium, her name is um, Adela. And she goes, "Oh yeah, if you leave the clinic," she calls it the rehab. If you leave the rehab, you go down these stairs and then you can go out into the city. And I'm like, "Well, I didn't get to leave the rehab." So she says, "Yeah, this is the way it's set up. This is how it works." And um, yeah, this is really cool. This is an unusual interview by far.
Well, hopefully it's entertaining.
Yeah.
I have two more questions for you. So, I sometimes get so far down the rabbit hole of the spirituality and the NDEs, and I have to pull myself out. There seems to be like this delicate balance between seeking spiritual experiences and staying grounded in our physical reality, because obviously we're here to learn something and to experience each other in community, right? How do you maintain this balance in your own life or guide others to do the same?
Well, I'm not holding back with the spiritual experience. Uh, I live we live out here in no one's around and just surrounded by water, and animals walk by, and it's a perfect environment. It's, like the old guy in the raggedy shorts. It's in a cave in the Himalayas. I got board shorts, and I'm in a cabin in California. But it's the same thing. I'm around natural beings all the time in a natural setting. I sleep outside under the stars every night, and I'm letting it rip. And I think, if you're a lot of people that are going through this Kundalini thing, they don't know what's going on. In the West, we have no idea um, what an amazing transition that is, and they're suffering. Um, but there was this quote, and it was from a fame. I think it was. Oh yeah, it was Edgar Casey, and he said that the schizophrenic is drowning in the same waters that the mystic delights in, and that's if that makes sense to you,
Yeah,
that
it does.
a lot of people are watching their reality breakdown, seeing things, in the room, and orbs and color changes, and I see lots of stuff, and I just love it. And I'm letting it roll, and I'm passing on whatever I experienced onto the next person. And humanity's going to grow up here, and it's just starting now. um, and it'll, in 10,000 years, or less than that, about 4 or 5 thousand years, with the precession of the equinox, this 24,000 year cycle, this great year where the earth goes through these times of darkness, And in 2012, we just turned the corner. It wasn't the end of the world. It was the end of it was a new beginning for man where they're going to be um, operating at a higher frequency, and it's just going to continue to go up. Um, and you can see that with the sun is vibrating differently. The wildfires are, you know, I've been in fighting wildfires since the 70s, and all the rules are gone as far as that. A fire will burn through complete burn through an area. The vibration of the planet is changing, and it's not bad news. It's just it's a new chapter. Uh, yeah, I'm letting whatever's going to happen. Because I'm an old guy. I'm almost 70, and I think that whatever I can do for the next person, um, for that next group that's going to take it further,
Mm.
I think that's good. Uh, we're not going to see a lot in our lifetime. We're going to see some changes, but it's going to be a small percentage of people are going to really be understanding some of the things you and I've talked about.
Yeah, I mean, I see it definitely in like my friends and, people that I never thought would be into the woo woo are asking questions in ways that they're more comfortable with. And, I see them getting deeper and deeper. So I definitely hear what you're saying. The Earth's frequency, our frequency, everything is changing and it's
Yeah,
only going to get more profound.
yeah, yeah. It's true, and it's some people are that are going the other direction with their emotions. The inner city stuff, the
Mhm.
violence and things. They're going that way in a hurry, and people that are choosing the higher vibrations or seeking, they're going the other way. They're going up, and it's pretty cool to watch.
Yeah.
Incredible times.
Yeah, absolutely. Of all the topics we've discussed today, which has had the most profound impact on your life, and what would you want our audience to take away from our conversation today?
The sitting quietly in stillness and in silence and letting that meditative state, letting your dropping the human being, all the thoughts and all the vibrations that go with that, putting it on pause and dropping into that meditative state. Um, that is absolutely the most important thing the world should learn because it's right. Everybody's can do it right now.
Yeah, I mean, you said it earlier, everything that we're doing here on Earth is kind of ridiculous. And I agreed with you silently because once I started to go down this rabbit hole of NDE and just listening to the story after story and how similar it is, and just having that tiny bit of remembrance, it's like, oh, yeah, I don't have to be right. I don't have to get out there and try to shove my point of view down
Right.
people's throat. I don't have to, we have choices. And I started to soften and quiet my mind and just go inward. And by doing that, exactly what you said, going inward, quieting our thoughts, aligning ourselves to our highest self or to the seat of our soul, that really is what it's all about in my mind or in my personal opinion. And I couldn't agree more with you.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for coming on the show today and sharing your wisdom with our listeners. I want to encourage everybody to hit the like button and the subscribe button down below. If you enjoyed our episode, please comment down and let us know what you thought of all of our conversation here today. I look forward to seeing you all next week.